Greetings, people of the world. Salutations from space. Aloha from Earth, and welcome to StarryTelling Hour here at the School of Earth Astrology with your host and celestial navigator, Gemini Brett. How you doing? Roll call. Where in the world are you beaming in from? I think I see Hawaii on the screen. Who else we got? Brenda from Two Devices. Wonderful. Well, an appropriate way to play in Gemini space. Anyway, we are connecting beams from many places in the world. Hey, Kirsten's here, the Tea Templar, just as I pour a cup of your wonderful tea. Thank you, brother. Selena, I see you here as well. We got Utah, we have maybe Colorado and Oregon in the house. We've got Idaho, we've got South Africa and Brazil. All right, Hawaii, Brazil, South Africa. Got a lot of the nodes happening winter here from across the bay in San Francisco, where it has equally been cloudy. So I was so excited yesterday to play with a couple of occultations. I had my alarm set for 3:33 a.m. to see the moon occult Saturn. I was in the perfect place for it. It's going to get a really amazing opportunity to see moon eating Saturn and then birthing Saturn on the other side right above Mount Tamalpais out here, which is this wonderful view we have from this house. And what I saw instead, clouds, marine layer, and then at sunset yesterday, perfect timing for a lunar eclipse, although it was a very partial one. But clouds. So my occultations were occulted. How are yours? And this isn't just about me or just about these occultations in current time. I wanted to speak today, as you can see here, in the theme of our StarryTelling Hour journey, one light, infinite shadows, how occultations show the uniquity of your soul. So let's talk about that business a bit. The uniquity of your soul. I will often share it this way, that once we bring in all these variables to this amazing astronomical equations called Mercury, speaking of equations, and Venus and Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, like the whole crew, right? Once we go there, we can very clearly see that the celestial geometry at the moment of your birth is yours and yours alone, and that it will never repeat. But what I've been amazed to find, and also not amazed to find over the years of my study, it's been this: I really do not need to go beyond the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world, to quote the Emerald Tablets of Hermes, where I feel that Hermes is speaking about circle, crescent, and cross, spirit, soul, and matter, sun, moon, and earth. Astronomically, I do not need to go beyond the sun, the moon, and the earth, meaning your specific place on the earth in the moment of your birth, to show you that the moment of your becoming is absolutely unique and will never, ever, ever repeat. And while I think that's a given principle for natal astrology, right? That your birth chart, your moment of becoming in that time and place has so much to do with who you are, what you came here to do, the venue of your particular growth, how you will walk your path, and the purpose of how you are designed to give the fruits from your particular tree back to the rest of us here on Earth, and on we go. I think the very principles, sometimes unspoken, about astrology is, it is that birth moment, and it's so specifically tuned to that moment of your birth and the way that it was experienced in that particular place where you were born. And that's you, and it's you alone, and it is quite particular. Actually, here we have connecting nodes from across the globe. So I'd like to invite you to experience this exercise with me, if you will, please. It's one I like to often do. Raise your hands up above your head. Oh, get that stretch, right? Align your spine and point to the zenith, to that place of the heavens right above your crown. Okay. You are pointing to a different star than I am right now. And keep them up, y'all. Get your hands up. Get your hands up. All right. So, right, you in Idaho versus you in South Africa and you in Brazil, right? Very clearly pointing to a different star than I am right now, right? So the above is particular. The above is unique. And you know what the truth is, if you still have your hands up, and I hope you do, we're now pointing to a different star than we were when we first raised our arms. Why? Because the earth's spinning beneath our feet. With us upon it, we're spinning too, right? And our experience of that, of course, as earthlings, is the sky spinning around us. So now I'm pointing to a different place than I was, even when I said I was pointing to a different place than when I first raised my hands. And that's a very different place than you are. For those of you who live at the exact same latitude as I do, maybe somebody's beaming in from Athens, Greece, I'm on the same parallel. I'll point to the star that you were pointing to if I do this in like 10 hours from now, you know. And that's an interesting thing too. But the above, it's absolutely unique. It's you and you alone. Kind of a burning feeling when we get into that space, right? Okay. But now please, with your arm still reaching to that particular space above, journey also down through your spine, through your root, through your feet. And join me in that one place where in all moments we and all earthlings connect and relate. That place called the heart of Gaia, the center of Earth. Dare I say, our crystal core. That is the place of oneness, at least from an earthly perspective. The whole, the below, the whole, the above, the particular. Okay, now maybe just because my arms are getting sore, let's bring that energy of the above down and of the below up and bring them into our heart, the above and below, the particular and the whole. We'll meet here in the seventh direction, which of course is the first, because the art of the chart and of all things starts in the heart. All right, thank you for playing with me. So we went to that center of Earth, which for me is actually this crystal core that describes the 12 signs. And I think that's a tale for another time if you'd like to hear it and see the science behind it. But what I can say without knowing exactly what does exist down there at the center from beneath our feet is that it is a place that we all share, and it is the place that we measure astrology from, typically. Okay. So Ashley's here from Seattle. Awesome, because Ashley, you are exactly north of me, and that will be a fun thing to play with on the Astro maps, which will be part of our journey today. I just want to extend this to the folks who are experiencing this at Instagram. When I share my screen, obviously it's not like too large on yours. So if you'd like to be somewhere where you can see like a more full screen experience of the charts and the maps and the photographs that I'll be showing along our journey today, head over to my YouTube page. So you can just search Gemini Brett over there. You can also link there from my Instagram bio if you'd prefer. Up to you. So before we get all charty and nerd out, let me just fast forward to the point of this thing. You are entirely unique. You are a moment of time embodied in a particular place where the energy of the cosmos was experienced in a unique way that will never, ever, ever repeat. We'll talk a bit about Saturn today. Maybe other beings like Jupiter and Mars, But very importantly, I do not have to go beyond the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world, the spirit, soul, matter, the circle, crescent, and cross, the sun, moon, and earth, to absolutely prove astronomically, as I will today, that the moment of your becoming will never be experienced in that way, ever, 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 ever again. So whether we want to call this soul or even the embodied self, and even if you have a twin who was born 30 seconds later or before, or even if some baby took their first breath in the exact same moment of you, but in the room next door, you are precisely you, particularly you, the only you. And it's a good time, and it's always a good time for us to feed the fires of sovereignty. So how about you do you, and I'll do me. Right. So let's just go to the charts. And I think I will share with you here the moment in which we began our StarryTelling Hour today, as we always do on Wednesdays, miércoles, Mercury's Day, at 11:11 a.m. Pacific time. You know, soon that Pacific Daylight Time will really Pacific Standard Time because of the daylight losing crime situation that I'm forced to comply with. Am I? Anyway, we see an Aries moon at the North Lunar Node, just on the heels of a partial lunar eclipse. There's an annular solar eclipse coming our way on October 2nd. Maybe we'll speak about that a little bit. Venus said to be at home in the sign of Libra. Mercury said to be at home in the sign of Virgo. Mercury opposite Saturn. Mercury in the 10th house. Oh, wait, is that true? Wherever you are? Let me just go around the world a little bit. Let's zoom out. So this is the chart for Richmond, California, where I sit. Okay, and I guess I'll put these local space lines on. You'll see they're all emanating from this place where I live and where I'm beaming from. This black line, which is the meridian, it's the south-north line. Hopefully you'll see that it's going right through Seattle. I live due south of Seattle, Washington. I actually live like my house is within a third of a degree south of the house that I sold in West Seattle, Washington before I moved down here, which is just an absolute trip. Anyway, the meridian is shown on a chart here. It's these arrows, the midheaven and the IC. Okay. So what we're going to find is that when we relocate to Seattle from Richmond, California, because Seattle is due north of me, this is not going to change. So like right now, or at least when we launched this ship today at 11:11 a.m. Pacific time on September 18th, 2024, here in Richmond, California, the midheaven's 2619 Leo. Let's take us up to Seattle. Midheaven's 2620 Leo, right? So 1 arc minute away. Pretty wild, right? But what changed? I mean, still we see Mercury, for example, in the 10th house, in the 11th whole sign. Virgo is the 11th of the Scorpio design. We're seeing this Mercury sextile to the ascendant. I can make that show a little bit easier if we go old school. And in Seattle, 2620 Leo at the midheaven and the ascendant 1301 Scorpio. All right, so let's play that game again. Let's go back to, I'll go back to Richmond, California. So Seattle, 2620 Leo, 1301 Scorpio. Here, 2619 Leo, but 1714 Scorpio. right? So you can see between these two places that are situated on a meridian, on a line of longitude, right, north-south of one another. The midheaven's the same, because the midheaven and the IC, which is opposite, which I like to call the reach and the roots respectively, they are described by the degree of the ecliptic. That's the heart of the zodiac, the path of the sun through our sky. Really, it is created by Earth's orbital path about the light, right? So where that ecliptic plane, the heart of the zodiac, intersects the meridian, the north-south line above ground, that's the MC. And where it intersects beneath the ground, that's the IC, right? The reach and the roots. And so in this case, you can see that in this moment of our launching for StarryTelling Hour today, and frankly, in every moment, Richmond, California, where I now reside, and Seattle, Washington, where I last resided, and where Ashley's beaming to us now from, they're on the same meridian. And so we always have the same MC and IC, but we will never have the same ascendant degree. Is that true? Actually not. So let me just stay with this example of Seattle and Richmond, California, but we're going to play with the chart in such a way that makes a given moment of time, actually 2 moments of time each day, look exactly the same between Richmond, California and Seattle, Washington, or wherever you are in exactly north of there, or wherever you are in exactly south of there. Okay. I just want to honor what I'm reading here. And Sue, I hope it's okay with you. I put this on the screen. So much hope. When our pony got sick this morning and heartbroken, she's left us for the Rainbow Bridge. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sue. And Sue, what happened? I hate eclipses. Sorry to rant. Eclipse season can bring serious shadow, and I'm really, really sorry that you've lost your pony and that she's moved on or is moving on to the next place. And I'm glad that we can honor that now and also like hold space for your pain. And I mean, it's part of this, right? Because we all just experienced a global event. Last night, for some of you, it was yesterday morning. For some of you, it was midnight or midday. But we all experienced a lunar eclipse. But how is that going to play for me versus how did it play for Sue? I mean, given we live in very different places, so what was our particular experience of the eclipse? I mean, but it also played differently than it did for my dog, Isabel, who's laying down here. We were in the same place. And yet we were born in different places and at different times. And so when we have these global events, like an eclipse, for example, we actually measure them from the center of Earth, that place of the whole where we are all one. And we're going to look at that some today. But of course, they express differently depending on where on Earth's surface, the particular, we are in the moment of time. And, natal astrology will also suggest that the way that particular activation that you maybe saw or did not see express itself where you are, but it perhaps especially expressed itself with respect to your birth chart. Well, tell us something about how it might show. Ponies, for example, in the astrological code, are representatives of or represented by our 12th house. And so perhaps we might find some kind of eclipse activation in your 12th of the planet related to the 12th, which is said to be animals, horse or larger. Makes you wonder about pony. Some say donkey or larger. What a weird thing. But and horse people know, that while dogs are amazing, you're amazing, Isabel, and so are the cats. They live in the 6th house traditionally in astrology, and horses in the 12th, because horses are just so incredibly psychic. So are you, Isabel. I see you. I feel you. I hear your thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's like a kind of an interesting consideration about horses in general. And sorry to maybe be committing the crime of utilizing astrology as a way out. Like, we want astrology to be a way in, right? Into the heart, not just some way out, not just some way that we either justify our own particular bad behavior. That was just my sun square Saturn. Or utilize this cosmic craft as a tool to avoid the waves of the heart, right? We want it to be a way in, and we also want to take space with that. So I very much appreciate you sharing your heart there, and I wish you great blessings, grace, patience, tenderness on this journey that you're on as well. Rainbow Bridge has 2 sides. Yeah, and I hope astrology will be a helpful tool for you to go to wherever this painful part of your path is leading you. And may it not be a place of pain at all. All right. We hear here, I've not been sleeping well. I can fall asleep, but wake up at the witching hour and cannot get back to sleep again. I'm thinking it is the eclipse. I was born on one. Intriguing. Right. And so I appreciate not only like, is this the eclipse cycle in real time, but is there something in, sorry, let me let the dog out. Hopefully the baby's not sleeping because no, she's not sleeping. Yeah, there's something about our natal chart and how these transits, like an eclipse, will activate the nativity, right? We like to say this in astrology and our many timing techniques, whether it's transits, progressions, profections, directions, circumambulations, arcs, whatever. Like, it might, in your experience, feel like something new, but it's really just activating the promise of your nativity. And there's a question about whether folks born in eclipse time are more activated by eclipse happenings. So I would not only look at the eclipse in your own, like against your natal chart, Brenda, in this case, but I'd look at your natal eclipse too. And by the way, friends, I should say that I'm actually running a special right now. I've only been announcing it here at StarryTelling Hour. I sent this out to my list yesterday for the first time. But if you go to GeminiBrett.com, you won't find this there because it's lurking in the shadows. But if you do type in this link, which is GeminiBrett.com/shadow, you can do an eclipse special with me. So it's $108 for 60 minutes. Just book anytime before the solar eclipse on October 2nd. You'll be scheduling after that. I'm booked out for a little bit, not as much as I have been. Hence eclipse special. But also, it's something I really love. We tend to go through it when the eclipse dragons arrive. Maybe it's as simple as we can't sleep, but that's a very complicated thing. Maybe our pony dies and walks the rainbow bridge. And there can be a lot going on. And eclipses, they kind of come around before they come around, and they have reach. They last for some time. So if you'd like to tune in with me, whether you want to look at your own prenatal eclipse story in your eclipse return cycles, something I'd love to share about, or how the activations of these current eclipses are speaking to you, yeah, use that link, and hopefully we can connect soon. Okay. Well, thank you for this, Peachy Mochi. Says hello, Gemini from the UK. I've learned so much from your StarryTelling Hour. Awesome. Thank you. And then Rosalind asks, was this a partial eclipse? Yes, indeed. This lunar eclipse was very partial. And then the solar eclipse coming is annular. And let's get to all of that. All right. Well, the art of the chart starts in the heart. And so I'm always appreciative of community who is willing to open and share. That's one of my favorite things, actually, about Constellations, which is the membership community at the School of Astrology that we launched this year, where people just come and get real and share their stories. I mean, we can be in celebrity charts all day, but we don't know these people. And the few times I have connected with celebrities in astrology readings, you know, of course, what's going on for them in their life has nothing to do with what the TV says is going on in their life, right? So I haven't yet, for some reason, had the courage in those few times to ask these people how they feel about astrologers looking at their charts, which really I should do, because, you know, I'm not going to get that opportunity many times in my life. Maybe I won't again, you know. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is celebrity charts are great. Example charts are great. But real example charts that really work, that help us learn this cosmic craft and help us learn what it is to be an incarnated human being in this weird world, are real charts of real people who are willing to share real stories. And I'm very blessed to be surrounded by so many, at least through these interwaves, in community. So, by the way, if you want to learn more about constellations, you can click geminibrett.com/constellations and join our community. I teach a class there every month. In fact, the next class I will teach there will be looking at the October 2nd solar eclipse in the 12 maps, as I like to call the 12 rising signs, right? So how does this Libra eclipse play for people born with Libra rising? Or you could do it with Libra moon, Libra sun, whatever, you know, versus Scorpio, versus Sagittarius, versus Capricorn, and that, right? So I'll look forward to just kind of sharing some of the ways that I play with kind of horoscopes. But like the best thing about that class will be then we open it up and we have a community gathering and folks share what they are actually going through. And we see if that's what we believe the cosmic craft would suggest. And in this way, we get to calibrate and recalibrate and learn how to do this thing. I missed the class last night, and I'm really excited to watch the recording of it. But Amala Hall, who's an amazing astro herbalist, is teaching monthly an astro herbalism class. Next week, we'll have a class led by Alyssa Luna, who's been offering embodiment practices for the signs each week at Constellations. And last week, we had a really wonderful class led by Phelan Shiva, who's been running the Astro Tarot Circle in Constellations. She offered a class on the court cards of the Tarot. That was really great, game-changing for me, particularly. Anyway, if you're in Constellations and you haven't seen that class yet, by the way, go check it out. It's on your resources page. You can just click geminibrett.com/star people to get there quickly. If you're not in Constellations, by the way, you can type that in if you'd like, but it's going to ask you for your password. If you want to get a password, GeminiBread.com/constellation, sign up, $16 a month, literally a class every week, an awesome community. And we have organized community discussion times. And folks who are in Constellations know that I'm starting to lead a Saturday group at 9 a.m. On the weekends that I am not teaching. Okay. So let's retrograde back to the whole and the particular. And I want to show you this interesting thing. Because look, even if I look at this particular moment in Richmond, California versus in Seattle, Washington, due north of me, we get very similar charts. Let's go here to, let's bring in one other place. Let's bring in a place far away. Let's go to South Africa, where one of you are. Let's go to Cape Town. Okay, cool. So what we're seeing here, Richmond, California in the upper chart, Seattle, Washington in the lower right, and then Cape Town, South Africa. Okay. So maybe the biggest difference that we're noticing here from one place to the next is day versus night. Right? In South Africa, when we began, it was not 11:11 a.m. as it was in both Richmond, California and in Seattle, Washington. It was 8:11 p.m. And in the last days of winter, right? Southern Hemisphere. And so the sun has set, right? This is the ground of the chart. I think we all know, at least in quadrant charts like this is a Placidus chart. And look at how the sun is now beneath the ground, right? Easy peasy. Right? So nighttime, technically speaking, with this big, beautiful moon on the rise and an evening star, Venus, beaming in the west at Spica, a really powerful star. Saturn visible in the northeast, clouds allowing, and I don't know what's happening there right now because I'm not there. I'm here where, yes, we are in some clouds, okay? When we look at Richmond versus Seattle again, there's this very interesting thing, like same MC degree, almost exactly 1 arc minute away, you can see. So MCIC, the meridian, the same. But the ascendant, different, right? I'm going to bring in one more chart. Let's go to Sacramento. Oh, and speaking of maps, Astro maps in Seattle, I will be doing a Astro locality masterclass workshop, post-conference workshop after NORWAC next year in 2025. I hope to see you there. Okay, so Richmond, California, Seattle, Sacramento. Okay, so what I want to show you here is Richmond and Sacramento, pretty similar ascendant, same degree. We call that partile. Different midheaven degrees, and they're close. Like I'm pretty close. I can drive there in an hour. But Seattle, though I certainly cannot drive there in the hour, the exact same. I mean, within an arc minute, midheaven, but different ascendant. Okay. So even there, we see that any given moment of time, which I think I would describe by the planets in the signs, is going to be experienced in any different place in a unique way. You'll never have the same ascendant and midheaven degree in 2 places in the same moment of time. Or will you? Okay, and so we go to our next experiment. And this is bringing us, by the way, to the topic of our story today, which is how occultations show and prove the uniquity of your soul. One light, infinite shadows. All right, so back to the charts. I'm actually going to set up a different house system here. We're going to go whole sign houses first. Okay, and this is a fun one because basically the way this thing works is you get like a 12-paneled beach ball. All right. So I just happen to be on Earth in the panel called Scorpio Rising at the time that we launched the StarryTelling ship today at, as it is every Wednesday, 11:11 a.m. Pacific time. All right. Now, Seattle also in that Scorpio zone, as is Sacramento. I mean, I can go all the way into whatever this place of Canada that I don't know what to call it is, or all the way down here on some whales back, you know, like that's just all Scorpio chart, right? Now you can see the ascendant and midheaven degrees moving around, which is an interesting thing. I can even get the midheaven, as you can see on this chart. Let me make it a little bit bigger. You can see the midheaven changing signs. Scorpio rising Cancer midheaven, Scorpio rising Leo midheaven, Scorpio rising Virgo midheaven. I mean, I can get, by the way, up into Scorpio rising Scorpio midheaven if we go all the way up to the Arctic Circle. But let's not freak about that right now. But I can just say from a whole sign perspective, let's just say that there's a difference between Scorpio rising and Sagittarius rising and Capricorn rising and Libra rising. Right. And so when we go to South Africa, for example, when we began today, it was Aries rising in Cape Town. And it was also an Aries rising moment in Corsica and in London. Right. So now the degrees are different. But if I went from Cape Town up to Sicily or someplace like exactly north of Cape Town, again, we're going to keep the same midheaven degree. So let me go to another house system shape here called equals houses. Right, and now we're like whole sign house systems, 30-degree equal house divisions. But instead of starting with 0 degrees of the sign, we start with the ascendant degree of the sign, right? So here in Richmond, California, at the start of StarryTelling Hour, 1714 Scorpio, all right? So let's put a chart on the screen, and then I'm going to have to trace not straight up and down lines. That's the same meridian. But to keep Scorpio rising and like those degrees of Scorpio rising, I would have to do some kind of arc. And basically, it would be very hard to define. I could put that degree on the map, by the way, here in this genius Astro Gold mapping software, and I could show you how I could keep it. But main thing I want to show is that, yeah, every place is experiencing every moment in a unique way. However, let me go to kind of the challenge. I'm going to rewind time here. Let's go to when 0 Libra was rising locally. Bear with me, please, as I find that moment in time. Okay, so we're close, but I want to get a little bit more precise. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so today it looks like 7:17:25 a.m. here in Richmond, California on Wednesday, Mercury's Day, September 18th, 2024, 0 degrees tropical Libra, rose locally. Okay. When 0 Libra is at the ascendant or 0 Aries, you always get the perfect cross on the chart. Right. So, I mean, many of you like me, like star students, have tripped on what the heck, like you cast a chart and the midheaven will be like over here. And you're like, wait, what? Or over here. And if you actually look during the course of the day, you'll see it do this. And not, by the way, at an even pace. I call it the, what was that song back in the day? I probably need to update, but I used to call it the whip and the nay-nay. Like it'll go like fast to one side and then kind of slowly get back to the other side. It's like do this weird thing, right? Well, everywhere on Earth, you get this perfect perfect cross, which twice a day. So only when the ascendant is due east. And there are only 2 degrees of the zodiac that rise due east. Now, you'll be taught this by astrologers all the time. The ascendant is east. Okay, fine. it's the eastern horizon. But I have clients who have been born far from the equator, where their ascendant degree, which is, by the way, where the ecliptic, the heart of the zodiac, the path of the sun, intersects the eastern horizon. I have clients whose ascendant is actually closer to cardinal north than east, or to cardinal south than to cardinal east. So the ascendant is only due east twice a day, and this happens everywhere on Earth when either 0 degrees tropical Aries or 0 degrees tropical Libra. And look, tropical, the astronomical zodiac. Yeah, I said it. The Earth astronomical zodiac. So many people will say that tropical astrology is no astronomy because the signs don't align with the constellations like they did 2,000 years ago, or that equal signs can never align with zodiac constellations because, unlike equal signs, they vary significantly in size, and all that's very true. But these ignorant folks don't understand the astronomical, the very real astronomical basis of tropical astrology, which I will suggest is actually the most astronomical of the zodiacal cosmologies, being constellational, sidereal, and tropical. And I would happily get onto a debate stage with any of these folks any day. Bring it on, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay, anyway, so 0 Aries rises due east. And of course, when 0 Aries rises, 0 Libra is setting due west. You know, I want to actually just align. Like, that's due west where I am. I like to put my western palm down, resting, and my eastern palm up. Right. So when either 0 Aries rises and 0 Libra sets, or 0 Libra rises and 0 Aries sets, we have our ascendant descendant, the rudder, aligned with the cardinal directions only then. And when we do, we have a perfect cross, because the midheaven, and I'm facing the midheaven here, south, and the IC, which is here north beneath the ground. By the way, for you in Cape Town, midheaven's north and the IC is south. Okay, but either way, like, that's always on the meridian. It's always on the north-south line. It's always on the band of longitude. So when the ascendant descendant, which rudders against the cardinal directions, like the ascendant goes to its northern extreme, which is what? The Tropic of Cancer. Does it have something to do with a star? No. Does it have something to do with Ophiuchus? Fuck no. Does it have something to do with a sidereal sign? No. The Tropic of Cancer. And you can see the glyph. 6 months this way for the sun, it stops and turns around, and 6 months in the other way. The moon does it every month. The ascendant does this every day. All right. And that's why one of the ancient terms for the ascendant in Greek is oiox, which means the rudder. All right. So anyway, the rudder is due east and due west, the ascendant descendant axis, twice a day, when either 0 Aries or 0 Libra rise. And when they do, then you get this perfect cross in the chart, because the midheaven IC will always be on the meridian north-south. And of course, east-west is square to north-south. Okay. Now, typically, like in my astronomy classes, I like to, that's like a few classes. We take some time, we do a lot of chart examples and the whatnot. Okay. And you might say, well, what does this have to do with eclipses and occultations? And get to the point, dude. Yeah. I hear you. And let's do it. But we want to journey there. I'm a storyteller. So I want to show you this moment, 7:17:25 a.m. this morning, where I live locally, 0 Libra was rising. And you know what? I'll even, for the sake of the science, share that I don't live. I'm like, my mail comes to Richmond, California, because they took my particular street back, but I'm closer to El Sobrante, California city center. Watch how this changes. So 7:17:25 a.m., 0 Libra rising. In El Sobrante, it was 02 arc minutes. And by the way, that's not my home. That's like town center down the road, right? So now I got to change by seconds to get back to 0 Libra rising at 7:17:13, right? So like, even where I am versus down the road, or by the way, next door, changes. you know, even in that room versus this one, the heavenly happenings are experienced slightly differently. And the moment I began that sentence versus the moment I ended it, slightly differently. Okay. So in a way, all we need is the planet Earth to show you how unique your moment is. Because some of you were born where you speak Spanish and eat more interesting food. And you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's a surface thing. Some of you are in your last days of winter. Congratulations, you've made it through. Happy spring equinox coming your way in a few days. And for us, while you spring up and the sun is springing to its peak at summer solstice in a few months for you, we are falling down, right? We're coming out of the days longer than the nights and heading in the other direction, you know? So let's look at this same moment in El Sobrante, California at 7:17:13 a.m. Can we keep 0 Libra if I 17:17:17? I mean, how could you resist? The answer is yes, but look up here at the midheaven. Now the midheaven's 0 degrees and 1 arc minute Cancer, and I want the perfect cross. And truthfully, I want like the first arc minute, arc second of Libra to be rising. Truthfully, 0 is not a number. There's no such thing as 0 degrees and 0 minutes. Okay, that's the cusp. So we're in the first arc minute or first arc second of Libra now. Okay, well, let's relocate this thing to Seattle, Washington. And in Seattle, so you can see just the very slight difference. 2 arc minutes, right? So in Seattle, for example, it was at 17:17. Oh, come on. I thought it was going to be 7:17:17. 7:17:23 a.m. Now, what did we see? That was like the same as Richmond, California. It was 7:17:25 when 0 Libra is on the rise. So I guess Richmond Town Hall is more due south to Seattle Town Hall or City Center, wherever the latitude and longitude, specifically in Seattle, that Astro Gold software is programmed to call upon when you type Seattle, Washington into the machine, right? But check out these charts. I mean, they're exactly the same. I don't need to put them side by side. This is Richmond, California on the inside. This is Seattle, Washington on the outside. How would you read that differently? So what I shared before, 2 babies taking a breath in the same moment. One in this room and another one down the hall, like their charts are still slightly different. Look, here is the same moment in Richmond, California and Seattle, Washington, hundreds of miles away. And the chart is exactly the same. Did I lie to you? My bad. I mean, this is a very special circumstance. It only happens twice every day. Like, that's not that rare, right? When either 0 Aries rises or 0 Libra rises. Because Seattle, Washington's due north of Richmond, California, they will have the same exact chart. If I use equal houses. Or I could use whole sign houses. Some of you would have been taught this incorrectly by me if you've studied astronomy with me some years ago. I used to think that every house system would look the same in these 2 moments every day for locations situated exactly north and south of one another. In other words, on the same meridian. I now understand that that is actually incorrect. So I can go to whole signs, and of course, like I don't even need in that regard the same moment of time. It's like Libra rising is Libra rising. Cancer is the 10th of the Libra design, okay? When I do draw on the ascendant and midheaven degree, this is only going to happen between Richmond. Oh, interesting. I meant to say Richmond, California. Okay, so Richmond, California, we saw it was, so this is fun, right? Here's 7/17/23 a.m. in a whole sign chart. And all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, everything just changes. Like, what? It's weird. Okay, but almost the exact same chart between Richmond, California, and Rich in Seattle, Washington in this moment. Okay. Like I can't, like I would have to put arc seconds on the page to show you that the ascendant is very slightly different from one of these places to the other place, okay? Let's go to those equal sign houses and the same thing, okay? I can, by the way, go with porphyry houses. Porphyry house divisions, they simply take everything between the midheaven degree and the ascendant degree and trisect it. Okay, well, when the midheaven degree is 0 Cancer and the ascendant degree is 0 Libra, that means 90 degrees of arc for this fourth quadrant. We trisect that into 3 30-degree slices, which, by the way, just look like the whole signs, right? So the porphyry chart, the equal house chart, the whole sign chart will be the same for these two places, so many hundreds of miles away from one another in these moments of time when 0 degrees tropical Aries or 0 degrees tropical Libra rise and set. But let's go Placidus. And by the way, the other quadrant systems, Regiomontanus, Campanus, they would do things like this too. I actually want to see if that's true of the Campanus system. And now we need to get these charts side by side. Right, so actually Campanus, see how these cusps are the same? Well, that's the same chart. Hold on. Okay, no, they're not. Right, or let me go to Placidus houses. And this isn't meant to be like a deep dive into the astronomy of different house systems, okay? But I just want you to see that in these two moments of time, where both of these places have 0 Libra on the rise, 0 Cancer at the top, it's basically the same chart, that the cusps for the other houses are different degrees. And that can arrange in some cases. It doesn't seem to be true here from one place versus the other on the same meridian line in that moment of time when 0 Aries or 0 Libra are rising and setting. That like a planet in the chart could be in a different house, which we would read differently. Okay. So we're not going to see this in whole sign houses in these specific moments during the day for places situated in the same meridian. We're not going to see it in equal houses or in porphyry houses. But in other house systems, we will still see, because the cusps of the houses will be different, that there is a difference in that same moment in these two places that are on the meridian line. Okay, then, and still, that's like a pretty unique thing. I'm going to go back to 11. Well, let's stay here. Let's show. I think South Africa won furthest from me, at least for places reported when I asked for roll call at the beginning of this thing. Let's go to Cape Town. Okay, so now these two places look very different. No, they don't, because it's the same chart again. Why are you doing that? These two places. So at 7:17 a.m. here in Richmond, California, when 0 Libra was rising and the sun in these last degrees of Virgo had just risen, in that Aries moon just after fullness and partial lunar eclipse was setting. In Cape Town, it was 4:17 p.m. on the clock, with the sun in the 8th, shadows getting long, right? Sun about to set. So, I mean, on one level, we can just say, well, it's daytime in both of these places. But one of them has the moon, Mars and Jupiter and Mercury all above the ground. The other one has moon, Mars, and Jupiter beneath the ground. Mercury's above, and now Venus is, but that's not true for the other place, right? Regardless, one has it's a Libra rising chart, the first minutes of Libra rising, the other one's 2704 Aquarius. I think they're very different, right? So all the house cusps are different, but what are the same? I mean, even when you look at like the strange aspects that I have shown in here, these are all within 1 degree. Like, let's look at one. Moon parallel sun, by the way, so let's keep that in our gaze. How about Venus triseptile Neptune? Right? Well, let's look at that in Cape Town. So there's a moon sun parallel. There's the Venus triseptile Neptune. Right? Because when we're looking at a chart, from a geocentric perspective, and we're looking at the relationships between these planets, and I think, you know what, let's just go more old school. So we'll stick with like trines and squares and the like. So how about Sun trine Uranus? Or let me give it a different example. How about Mercury opposite Saturn? Okay, which is like perfected very recently, right? Let's even say, though, it's not as strong, like the Virgo Mercury, Gemini Jupiter, Pisces Saturn T-square of this chart. Let's look there. Where are we measuring that from? Does anyone answer that question? Like when we cast an astrology chart, unless you push special buttons, where are we measuring the planets and the signs and therefore the aspects and the geometries between them? Where are we measuring that from? Are we measuring it from the sun? Don says from our hearts, but it's really from our shared heart, from the heart of Gaia. So that place that we went to earlier on, deep beneath our feet, the crystal core of Earth, the center of it all. Okay. As Discerning Light says, like if we wanted to cast a chart from the sun, it would be heliocentric, center of the Earth, geocentric. And you'll see that written on this chart here in Astro Gold software. Geocentric. Okay, so the center of Earth. Let's cast a heliocentric chart for the same moment. All right, so one of them, they both have the same ascendant degree, which it's kind of like, what are you going to do? It's also ridiculous. They're also the same chart. Hold on, let's do that. So I'll suggest, oh wait, we're in Cape Town. What? Okay, so StarryTelling Hour, Richmond, California. It's not actually StarryTelling Hour, by the way. It's when 0 Libra was rising in Richmond, California, 7:17:25 a.m. today, September 18th, 2024, from a geocentric or Earth-centered point of view versus heliocentric. Where's the moon on the heliocentric chart? Where's the sun? Well, the sun is the center of it. The moon is just too close to the earth to have any distinction, okay? So that earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit, yes, you are a spiritual being having a experience in matter here on earth, right? That shows up in the heliocentric chart. Where's the earth? An interesting, earth conjunct Neptune. We're in the geocentric chart, earth at the center, sun opposite Neptune. Well, what about that T square we were investigating of Virgo, Mercury square, Jupiter and Gemini, and opposite Pisces, Saturn? Where's that? Huh. Well, Mercury and Mars are more like square. Mercury and Jupiter, they're not square at all. They're sextile. Jupiter and Saturn are kind of square. Mercury's not opposite Saturn. You see what's going on? Like, let's do this solar system scope, right? And so you can see here from the Earth, Mercury square Jupiter. That's not what's happening from the sun, right? So just very importantly, like our geocentric charts are geocentric. They're at the center of the Earth. The center of Earth is the center of the chart. Now, at the surface, that's what's going to create houses, right? So when we look at this, you know, let me get back to StarryTelling Hour, actually. It just feels more right if I 1111 this thing. And then relocate this to Cape Town. What's the same and what's different? What's different are the angles. In Cape Town, where it was 8:11 p.m., Aries was rising. In Richmond, California, where it was 11:11 a.m., Scorpio's rising with the Leo midheaven. In Cape Town, Aries rising with the Capricorn midheaven. By the way, that midheaven in Cape Town is north, where this Leo midheaven in Richmond, California is south. So the difference between the hemispheres becomes very interesting there. But they all have Uranus trine Pluto with Neptune at the midpoint, like exactly, by the way, because those are things measured from the center of the Earth, the center, whole, below, signs. Planets in the signs are not measured from the surface of the Earth, they're measured from the center of the Earth. Houses are a reflection of the particular, just like, well, South Africa speaks the same language, but different accent, right, to what we're up to here in California, at least at this time on Earth. Very different cultures, very different experiences, seasonal opposition. The center of Earth doesn't have seasons, does it? It does, by the way, have directions. And you've heard me say this, and will hear me say it again many, many more times, like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions. The tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. In fact, I will suggest that its signs are directionally defined. And it has everything to do with Gaia's spine, our rotational axis, and the planes of rotation, equator, with respect to the planes of orbit, ecliptic. So, what about occultations, man? Like, let's get to it. Cool. Well, let me just push one button here. And as I said before, like all of these variables, like the Mercury, Venus's, Mars's, like they make it more interesting, okay? But what we're going to look at here is just the sun, moon, and earth, which means just the sun and the moon. Because where is earth? And from one perspective, it's the center of the chart. However, it's also the ground beneath our feet, which would be the ascendant and the descendant, right? For me, the ascendant, like what's rising in the east, and why is it rising in the east? Because the earth is falling in that direction. Like that's the best place to look for your local earth on a chart. But really, it's the ascendant, descendant. Well, they're, you know, two sides of a coin, right? So, of course, that's different in Cape Town. It's the Aries Libra ascendant descendant axis, where here in Richmond, California, the same moment of time, Scorpio Taurus, right? Like those are the two things that are different in these charts. Where's the moon? Like different house, but 5 degrees, 33 minutes, Aries. The sun, 2618 Virgo. Now, in one of these places, that means the last days of summer, and the other, it means the last days of winter. That's cool. But regardless, they're in the same longitude, same zodiac degree. All right. Well, let me push a little nifty button here. We're going to see a bit of a change, and it's called the parallax button. Oh, what happened? Notice that the sun is at the exact same degree. And by the way, let me bring in some more beings. And let's just go through them. Okay, Mercury in both the Richmond, California and the Cape Town, South Africa chart for the same moment that was expressed on the clock is 11:11 a.m. Pacific in the one and 8:11 p.m. in the other. Mercury at 1558 Virgo, Sun at 2618 Virgo, Venus 2441 Libra, Mars 809 Cancer, Jupiter 2038 Gemini, Saturn 1513 Pisces, Moon at 564. Oh gosh, what the heck happened? Parallax. What is parallax? It is this. Now I see you. Now I don't, right? Or just consider this, like which part of this armillary sphere can you see and which can you not? So which part of this globe can see you and which cannot, right? So South America can see you where North America can't, because I guess this orbiting thing is occulting the camera. Do you see what I'm saying? Parallax. Now, the moon is the only being in our charts that is close enough to Earth to show a distinction when we consider measurement from the center of Earth versus measurement from the surface of Earth. You go to our neighbors, planetarily speaking, Venus on the inside and Mars on the outside. They're so far away that that distance from the center of the Earth to the surface of the Earth becomes negligible. This is not true of the moon. And so with moon, and let me bring you into some cool images here, we have this amazement of parallax. And it really is quite an amazing thing. Oh, a Brett within a Brett within a Brett within a Brett. I've been, did I lose him? Yeah, no, I've been updating this page all day. It hasn't happened yet. So, by the way, if you don't know about Cosmic Background Studios, it was Andrew McCarthy. Yeah, follow this page. He's on Instagram and Facebook and all the places. So this guy is taking amazing, astro photo and doing all the work in post-production and stuff to let us see some of these beings in brand new ways. And so he wrote here, did you know Saturn is being occulted by the moon Tuesday morning? And I traveled the world to try and get the perfect shot. I'll post it here right after I capture it. I wonder if maybe he was clouded out or just hasn't gotten to see it yet. So, and check this out, by the way, this is 5 years of Saturn photos. I just wanted to honor while that's there at the top of Andrew's page to show you this wonderful thing. Here's 29 years of Saturn photos. It's a Saturn year, right? Saturn gets around the sun in 29 and a half years. You can see the seasons on Saturn because Saturn's equator is so beautifully marked by those beautiful rings. Right. And so what would it be when the equator is facing the sun? It's called equinox, right? So what is it when the North Pole is leaning towards the sun? It's called summer solstice for the northern hemisphere, or winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. The opposite would be true here, half of the year away, and the half of the year on Saturn is like 15 Earth years long, So it's pretty cool that we're actually able to experience, like this would be the equinox, right? You can't even see the rings. If we were taking these photographs from the sun. Anyway, that's just a little aside I wanted to show. Here we did get some photographs. These from, who is this? Josh Dury, boom, of the Saturn occultation. And he stacked this in an interesting way, where basically instead of showing the moon come to address Saturn and occult Saturn and then separate from Saturn, so Saturn is seen to be reborn, he had the camera, I assume, on like a moving device that like let us just take consecutive pictures of moon and Saturn, and then he stacked them in such a way that the moon and throughout these many moments of time stays in the same place, and you get to see it. It looks like Saturn moving. That's not how it works in the chart, and maybe let me just show you that here. Not in solar system scope. Oh, certainly not there either. I pushed the wrong button. Let me close these things. Oops. And we'll go to Stellarium here. And I'm going to rewind to yesterday. Yesterday, all my occultations seemed to be in play. But the clouds came and ate the sky, and so I was not allowed to see this amazing thing. It felt so Saturnian. All my dreams were blocked again. Okay. Moon and Saturn. All right, this is Richmond, El Sobrante, California, where I am, September 17th, 2:22 a.m. I'm just going to center on the moon, and we are going to move through time. There it is. Lunar occultation. Now, wait a second. Let me rewind. Let's see when they were most aligned. It looks like 3:16 a.m. All right. And wait, that's the occultation you're selling me? Saturn and many of Saturn's gazillion moons are actually still visible. And that's because I think the software is set to geocentric. So was this a Saturn occultation from a geocentric point of view? Let's go back here on a chart, and I will just type in moon conjunct Saturn. And I meant to do that geocentrically. So let me turn the parallax off. So that's going to bring us to a little bit of an earlier time, 3:10 a.m. It's like this thing. And here's moon and Saturn. It's like the exact same degree. Well, we also have to consider their longitude, longitude is zodiac degree, but their latitude, how far north or south of the ecliptic they are. And so if I go to a points list here, we'll see that moon has a latitude of -155 and Saturn -211. Okay, so they're different by what, like 16 arc minutes. Well, the moon is like a half of a degree in the sky, right? So from her center to the edge, a quarter of a degree, and this is more than a quarter, so it's actually not an occultation. But if I push the parallax button, where I'm looking from on Earth, that changes the moon's apparent latitude, and now it's very close to Saturn's. And let's actually go to the time of their conjunction from a parallax point of view, which wasn't until 4:37 a.m. And now we see the moon's latitude at 211 and Saturn's at 211. Or we can look from the equator versus the ecliptic declination, moon 748 south, Saturn 748 south. I mean, it is exact, friends. And so here in Stellarium, I got to go into tools and click topocentric, which means Earth's surface, which isn't going to do anything about Saturn because Saturn's so far away that the measurement of Saturn from Earth's center versus the measurement from Earth's surface really is negligible. But the moon is close enough that we have parallax. So watch what happens when I push that button. Whoa. I mean, the same moment of time. And like, by the way, like I'm not living at the center of the Earth. This is what I would have seen if the clouds allowed. I had my alarm set for 3:33. So I could get set up and like see this thing. And bam, what do I not see? Saturn. But I didn't see any of it because of the clouds. So that's an amazing thing. And by the way, like notice that from a parallax point of view, which is the surface point of view, which is the only point of view I can have, How do I find y'all again? You've been occulted. We're back. It seems like none of that was shared though, huh? Oh, Brett, we can't see the images. Yeah, I can't see your comments when I'm off doing that. What a drag. Sorry, so you missed a lot of that. Let me just go through it real quick. And I have no time anymore. This is a Mars occultation, by the way. That's the first planetary occultation I saw with my eyeballs. Winter, were you there? Here's the with parallax, Moon conjunct Saturn at 4:37 a.m. locally. This is what I was showing of Moon and Saturn having the same latitude at that time and the same declination at that time. But if I take the parallax setting away, then the Moon-Saturn conjunction actually happened earlier than that from a geocentric point of view. And if we go to the points list now, the Moon's latitude is different enough from that of Saturn, or we could look to declination, where this is not an occultation. So it wasn't actually the Moon-Saturn occultation on the 17th of September. It was not an occultation from the center of Earth. I mean, it was a close conjunction. Nobody's looking from the center of Earth anyway, I don't think. Okay, so this is what I was showing here in Stellarium software. And sorry, somehow that messed up. I wonder if it's just when I go to the full screen like that. Can I just ask, can you see me circling the Moon and Saturn here in the kind of screenshot of an astronomy software? Somebody say yes or no real quick, please. Were you able to see that on the screen? Yes. Okay, cool. So somehow I was doing it right that time. Let's go back there. Okay. So if I turn parallax off, or in this software, they're going to call it topocentric coordinates versus geocentric. Okay. So let me show you the Moon-Saturn conjunction. Geocentric. And again, it's not an occultation. I mean, it's like the edge of the Moon at the edge of Saturn. Okay. And it's like that 3 a.m.-ish, whatever time we saw on the chart. But if I go topocentric, see how it hasn't even happened yet. So I have my alarm set for 3:33 to see this, is what I showed before. And now I'm just looking at the heart of the Moon and the heart of Saturn aligned. And so Saturn gets occulted from our view. Well, I want to show some other things here, all right? So this, like here in this article, they actually reference this. I did the inthesky.org image of this map of where that Saturn occultation was visible from. Okay, so this is like a solar eclipse. We have this annular solar eclipse aligning on October 2nd. Maybe next week I'll speak about what difference between total and annular. But, you know, it will be visible in Hawaii, clouds allowing, in Galapagos, in a little bit of Baja, Nadine, down in South America, and Chile and Argentina, right? So anywhere in the shadow, but why not here in California where I live? I mean, the sun will be in the sky, so the Moon's coming between Earth and sun, and it's because of parallax, right? Because again, like for you right now, this Moon is occulting Northern America, but not Southern America. Like let's switch that around. For the eclipse that's coming, it's going to be more like this. Come here. Right? So let's say you are the sun and this is the Moon. South America can't see you, but North America can. See how that works? So it depends where on Earth you were. Now, if this thing is so far away, right, it like makes much less of a difference. So only the Moon, and play this game, go play with astrology charts and look at you with parallax Moon versus not. Sometimes if your Moon's on the cusp, it'll even change signs. So let me share one more thing here, and then I'll just rewind to the point I was trying to make a point. This is amazing, and I actually want to cast these charts. Okay, so Houston versus Tokyo. So let's go March 7th Tokyo, Houston, Texas, 4 a.m. on March 7th, 2023. Deep in the heart of Texas. Okay, so moon at 1558 Virgo. Let's relocate this chart to Tokyo. Oh no, there goes Tokyo. Go, go, Godzilla. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every place should have a song. So the moon is at the exact same degree on the charts. Hopefully the charts are on your screen. All right, but let's go push the magical parallax button. Okay, Houston, moon at 1452 Virgo. Tokyo, moon at 1609 Virgo. And I want to show you this in two charts. Okay, so Houston's up top and Tokyo down at the bottom. And what I want you to see is this interesting thing. When the moon is on the eastern side of the meridian, in other words, on the way up, her degree in the chart will be more advanced from the topocentric or Earth surface experience, the parallax moon, than the geocentric. So let me switch this to geocentric. And now we'll see that both in this moment of time in Houston and Tokyo, the moon's at the exact same degree like all the other planets are, right? 15, 18, tropical Virgo. Okay, but when I push parallax, suddenly you're going to see that the moon here on the eastern side of the meridian on the way up in Japan versus in Houston where the moon had already culminated on the meridian is now on the way down. On the way up, the moon's going to be, from a parallax point of view, in a more advanced degree. And on the way down, in a less advanced degree. Processed and precessed. Okay, so like when I went out and saw that Mars occultation, that was the trippiest thing for me, is I had a crew of people, we were watching the moon like eat Mars and then Mars reborn on the other side. So it was a whole thing. And then when Anna and I were walking to our car afterwards, I cast a chart. And in that moment on my chart, moon conjoined Saturn. I had literally just watched for an hour moon pass Saturn by, like the conjunction was over. And I looked at the chart and moon was just conjoining Saturn. I was like, what? And then I went to like the UK where they were also in this band where the occultation at that time was visible. And they hadn't experienced it yet. And I was like, oh, this parallax thing is real. Because here's this moment of time, but we're experiencing it in different ways. And maybe I definitely spent more time than I intended to today to show you just in house systems. Like if you use a Placidus house system, you can't get any moment of time to express in two different places in the same way. House cuts would be different. Even if it's a place due north or due south of where you are in 0 Aries or 0 Libra rising, like that's a very special condition and it's amazing. But what's going to be the same in those two places, all of the planet degrees, except the moon, if you consider parallax. Now, this brings a really interesting question up that I just want to tend to now. The few of us who have looked at this, David Cochran being another one that I know of, and maybe it's not few, maybe everybody's doing it. I doubt it. Pretty nerd stuff. We have found that people tend, when you find a chart where the parallax moon actually changes the sign of the moon, that people tend to associate more with the geocentric placement of the moon than the topocentric. In other words, Earth's center versus Earth's surface where they were born. Now that opens up a very interesting thing, and it's something I like to say all the time. Like, we are not measuring astrology from the surface of the earth where we live, breathe, and witness the heavenly happening in a geocentric chart that most of us are using, but rather for the center of the earth where we are all one. So astrology is measuring your experience of Earth's experience of the heavenly happenings, signs, the below, the whole. However, how is that moment of time experienced from the surface of the Earth, right? Houses, particular. And from the surface, we actually have a different experience in parallax. Discerning light. Are there any books on this topic? No, you're reading it right now. Well, let me say, I don't know, and please let me know if you come across something. Right, and so astronomers are going to get into this. Like, let's go back to this NASA page. Moon Essentials, parallax, right? So NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio is talking about it. How cool. Are they going to talk about what it means in regards to your soul? No, they'd smack me in the face for doing so. Betraying astronomy, am I? What buttons are happening? What's going on here? Okay, so check it out. We got these charts up. We've got these charts up. And from the parallax, the moon's actually in a different zodiac degree. And check this out. Like from these two different surface places on Earth, you're actually looking at a slightly different experience of the moon. One of them, the moon seems to actually get a little bit bigger to me. I don't know if that's true, but one place literally could be closer to the moon than the other. But what we're definitely seeing is some rotation to the moon, intriguing. And maybe more importantly, from a more, I don't know, from a sidereal astronomical point of view or constellational astrological point of view. Check this out. So they're flipping back and forth between Houston and Tokyo. And the moon is in a different expression against the backdrop stars. I don't know what stars these are. Let's see. It's in the haunches of the lion. But I'd have to spend some more. Oh, this is probably Cherton and Zosma here and here. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I have to spend some more time. You know what? Sorry. What it is this is Cherton, this is Zosma, and this is Denebola. That's right. That's definitely it. And right from Houston's point of view, you see the moon further north up towards Cherton, and in Tokyo's point of view, further south. Like, that's an incredible thing. I just want to check that, by the way. Like, what it would say is that Tokyo's declination, lunar declination, is further south than Houston's. So Houston 9 north for the parallax moon at the time. For Tokyo, yeah, a little bit further south, 7 arc minutes further south. Okay. Nerd. My niece used to say, nerd alert, when I'd go into this place. Do what you will. Okay, it's good. You can see it's a full moon as well, right? So the sun doesn't move in the chart, but the parallax moon does. And you have to be in particular places on the Earth. Unlike a lunar eclipse, where like if it's nighttime and clouds allow, you're going to see it. This one was very partial the other night. But hey, partial eclipses can have total effects. And here's the annular solar eclipse. Why is it annular? Because unlike the supermoon, which was this lunar eclipse with the moon close to Earth, this is the moon far from Earth. And so we still get the ring of fire around the sun's, the ring of fire around the center of the sun that is occulted by the moon, because the moon's apparently smaller when far from Earth, okay? But like, even though it's going to be daytime, when I go look at the eclipse, all I'm going to see is the sun, because the moon will be just slightly below the sun. And so it's going to be no moon for me. If I went further south, it does that, right? And now suddenly, oh, the moon is actually occulting the sun, and I get a partial. And then if I go right in, then I'm in this annular place. So just the idea of an eclipse path and the particularity of surface experience of eclipse. Now, solar eclipse, like that's the moon occulting the sun. If it's nighttime, no eclipse for you. But look, just because you don't be it or don't see it doesn't mean you don't be it. We're measuring astrology from the center of the Earth, where we are all one, right? It's happening there. It's happening for you. It's happening for all of us. It's happening for our planet. We are her. Our bones are her stones. And yet, we live in the surface, at least I do. I think you do too. Nobody chimed in from Agartha. We were born on the surface, at least I was. I'm guessing you were too. And parallax is a thing. In that parallax, hopefully I like proved to you technically after I said this out loud before, like it proves to you the uniquity of your moment of birth in that particular place, in that particular time. Time expressed by the planets and the signs, place expressed by the planets and the houses. But there's one being who, even in the signs, will show you a difference from, Morocco. Well, let's say Casablanca and Timbuktu. And that's the parallax moon. Or from Richmond, California and Seattle, where charts might look exactly the same until I parallax the moon in those 2 times a day when the equinox points 0 Aries and 0 tropical Libra horizon set. You are you. You're the only you. You're the only one that can do you. So please do you fully. You do you, all do me. This is sovereignty. What is spirit? What is soul? What is self? Those are the big questions. And why are we here anyway? But I will at least just suggest that as we explore some of these starry sciences and the measurable side of the heavenly happenings, they will tell us a lot more about the immeasurable. Discerning Light says, what do you think about relocation charts? I use them all the time, and I help people relocate all the time based upon, their natal promise and what their birth moment looked like in different places. And by the way, I've done this just a little bit with parallax moon, so I don't have time to show you the charts because I'm with baby here in a few minutes. But okay, actually I do. Let me show you this real quick. Here's one of my favorite astro mapping examples of all time anyway. George Harrison. Let me just bring up his chart real quick. Okay. All right. Let's get that screen shared. Hey, y'all, come hang out in Constellations. You get more of this, but a lot more heart, a lot more sharing. GeminiBrett.com/constellations if you want to know about that. Come on over for an eclipse special. GeminiBrett.com/shadow. GeminiBrett.com/sessions, by the way, if you want to book an astrolocality reading with me, just book a new client reading or a follow-up if we've been together before, or we can tune into anything, synastry, what's your parallax story, whatever. But if you want to do some particular looks into eclipse story, holler. Can you see that George Harrison was born in eclipse season? That's the sun at the node. Okay, so he's born after a lunar eclipse and before a solar eclipse. Yeah, looks like he was born after a solar then a lunar eclipse. Okay, anyway, fun fact with George Harrison is the moon is beneath the ground, but it wasn't. All right, so let me show you the moon's altitude positive. How is that? Because the moon is not on her node. She has northern latitude. She's north of the ecliptic plane. And for northern hemisphere places like Liverpool, especially for far northern places like Liverpool, that puts the moon above the horizon, even though apparently below. Okay. Still, from a geocentric point of view, no matter where I relocate this chart, a Scorpio moon's a Scorpio moon. It might interest you to know that one of the places the Scorpio moon really shows up for George Harrison is in Ricochet. Why can't I say Ricochet? Why do you say that place in India? Anyway, is in India where the Beatles went to sit with Maharishi, right? Where he met a lot of the Indian musicians that he worked with, like Ravi Shankar, however, like more down here in the Mumbai zone. All right. But Rishikesh, right? It's right where the moon was at the midheaven when he was born. And hopefully you know that there was some fallout regarding some kind of Scorpio stuff with the guru. right? Particularly with the pretty ladies on the scene. And then it was later disproved, but regardless, that's why the Beatles split, okay? Well, you may know something about George Harrison's kind of Scorpio challenges in his own marriage over time. There were a couple places where he went to like really focus on the marriage. He had a house in Hana in Maui over here. You can see the sun at the midheaven. He had a house in the islands off of the coast of Australia over here. Okay. Well, Scorpio moon, no matter where you go, or is it? Because if we consider parallax, buttons, which button is it? There. If we consider parallax and go back to the map, we'll dig how if I take George Harrison over to Maui, suddenly there's a Libra moon. See? The same is true on the other side, the flat earth here in Australia. So in two places where he was very public about, they were places where he wanted to work on his marriage and family. I kind of find this even more interesting in Hawaii, because then that Libra moon, parallax Libra moon, is also in the 5th house of children, right? When he got away from LA and his demons there, he actually was relocating to places on Earth where the parallax moon changed signs. And there's one example, and I don't have many others, although I would love to play this with you in your own astro maps, where it would maybe suggest that we should be paying attention to the parallax position of the natal moon degree as well. So yeah, I love relocated charts. In a sea of wild stuff that astrology is, I think the astro maps take the cake. And I wanted to end just with one picture here, which is from Andrew McCarthy's cosmic background. This is obviously from a very different eclipse. This is a total lunar eclipse. Right, so moon occulted Saturn the other day and then was occulted by the shadow of Earth just partially. And here's a blood moon where fully. Okay, well, it doesn't have to be exactly on the node. It doesn't have to be the heart of Earth, heart of moon, heart of sun, heart of Earth, heart of moon, right? It's Earth's shadow being projected by the sun. One light, infinite shadows. You cast a shadow, I cast a shadow. I'm casting a different shadow now than I do now because the sun has moved. You see what I mean? That hence the name of our jam together today. But I want you to see, and this is just such an amazing thing. If I had the dough, like this would be a huge painting on the wall downstairs. Look at the size of Earth compared to the size of the moon. The moon is 3/11ths the size of Earth by a diameter, which is a really important key into the mysteries, by the way. All right, so actually one more picture to show here as we split. Where is that thing? One light, infinite shadows. There is only one light, friends. Call it spirit, call it what you will. That's what I call it. And I see the sun as its local representative. But there are an infinite amount of shadows. Only you cast this shadow in this moment, and you will cast another one in another one, right? Only your place would cast the length of a shadow standard in your birth moment versus places down the road. You can see at the top of this thing links like geminibrett.com/donate. If you want to buy me a cup of tea, I'd sure appreciate it. You can go there and send along a little something. Thanks. But the greatest gift is the present of your presence. I do ask you, however, to subscribe to the channel, to give a like to this video, to share it around with other people who actually might want to spend some time on this astronomical side, the quantity, the measurable, to get perhaps even more deeply into the immeasurable side, the quality. Winter asks this, like relocating the natal chart, do you change the clock time as you move it around the map? Yeah, I mean, what I was showing before in Astro Gold, which lets me relocate the chart real time as I move around, which is amazing. It locks in the time on the birth chart, unfortunately. But when you like use the relocate button to create a chart, as you saw before, I relocated Richmond, California to Cape Town, South Africa, and what was 11:11 a.m. here was 8:11 p.m. there, right? Same moment, different experience. All right, y'all. Gotcha. Right on. Winter, thank you for being here. Parallax Moon, while his guitar gently weeps, indeed. All right, y'all. See you in space. See you next week. If you're in Constellations, I will see you sooner than that. I sure hope. GeminiBrett.com/constellations. Come join our community. It's an amazing place of like-minded and like-hearted folks, starry seekers like you. See you in space, friends.